Nation, what's up? We're rocking, we're rolling. It's Thursday night, live streaming, drinking whiskey, which, as you guys know, this month I've been doing that only drinking on Thursday live streams thing. So I've really been looking forward to Thursdays. She's trying to keep it reined in still, though, on Thursdays. I think it'd be a little easy to kind of take it over the line. We're not going to take it over the line. We'll keep it reined in. But tonight we've got Sam, who's actually just waiting right now. I'll bring her into the stream in just a hot second. But Samantha Montgomery from Bardstown Bourbon Company, she's joining the stream, and we're going to talk about her journey in whiskey and all things BBC. Of course, we have Brian with us, not Drew, at Abandoned Bourbon. Say hi to the people, Brian.
Hello to the people.
Thanks for doing that, man. Let's get started. Let's get started with our bits, our usual bits. First one being, how did hunting go for you this week, Brian? What did you score?
It was a great week. Anyone who has been following on my videos that I've been posting, you obviously, you probably came to Entry Proof and you are here right now because of Drew's video. But that I was able to find and then did a video immediately last night of the Russell's Reserve 13 years. So anyone who's watching the stream and did not know that, after this stream, feel free to pop over. Just click my icon in the chat or whatever. Pop over there and watch a video where we talk about the Russell's Reserve 13 year.
Which I have not watched that yet, but I really wanted to because you know that I'm just crazy jacked for that release. I want it so hard. Like, I just want that one. Which I'll get to that. Anything else? Anything else did you score, Brian?
This past week, I don't actually know. I got some stuff in the previous weeks, but I want to say that's probably it. Yeah, probably it. I picked up some of those from our last time talking. I was looking for those honey Starlight Rise, and I was able to find some of those. So nice.
Excuse me. Wisconsin is a wasteland right now in terms of fresh bourbons. But it'd been a while since I had a New Riff single barrel, so I just bought one off the shelf, and it's a good one. It's red fruit, raspberries, and hold on one second. The red fruit really stood out to me. Popped it right away. This is the neck pour. Really sweet. I love their stuff because even though it's 4 years old, I get zero useful graininess. I've almost never had it in a New Riff pick, especially the single barrels, not just the picks. I'm talking about the standard releases. Anyway, Picked that up, and that was it. That's all. I made a few stops, but I saw absolutely Jack squat. I almost bought Evan Williams single barrel today because that's another one that I haven't had in quite some time, and it's kind of nice to just have it around. But I had bought 2 Evan Williams bottles for the live stream we did with Jason Mash and Drum, so I gotta drink those first.
As of this week, I did see Stellum, so the Stellum Rye and a Stellum Bourbon have landed here in town. I contemplated picking up the bourbon, but I didn't. And then I talked previously before that Doc Swinson's Alter Ego is in town, and it's in more places now, so they're hopefully readily on the shelves here in Louisville. So I might pick one of those up and pop and taste and review, but we'll see.
Sweet.
Not yet.
All right. Well, before we do what are we drinking, we'll bring in Sam because she's actually She's drinking something that Nation will find surprising, I think. All right. So welcome to the show, Samantha Montgomery from Bardstown Bourbon Company. Sam, again, thank you for joining us tonight. We really appreciate it. I know you're busy on the road, hustling whiskey during the day, and then here we are like, hey, can you talk just a little more whiskey, please, in the evening?
I love it. It's more of a lifestyle than a job, as cliche as that sounds. So if I didn't love it, what's the point?
Yeah, no, I try and bring that approach to coffee too. It kind of ebbs and flows a little bit. There are times where it's like, yeah, I just love this. I wouldn't want to do anything else. And there are times where like, geez, I'm tired. Like I'm just a little bit tired. But especially working for a place like Bardstown, I'm sure it feels like the excitement is really palpable whenever you talk with anybody there. I assume that's your experience as well.
Yeah, I think that is a lot of people's first impression when they come visit the distillery or, do a tour, grab a bite to eat in the restaurant, is that the vibe, the energy is very positive. Everybody has a hand in the brand. So it's very easy to feel that when you walk in or when you talk to any of us on, Zoom or YouTube or whatever it is. We're just excited to be part of the story,
Yeah, we'll get into that a lot because that's been basically what I said. It's been what I've heard. We talked with, oh my gosh, I'm so terrible with names. Dan, oh my gosh, that I got scared.
Danny Bardstown.
Yeah, exactly. Dan Calloway. I had a great time chatting with him, and he's just like so jacked, so high on BBC and his work and the vibes there, the culture there. I really want to try and get a lot of your perspective on that as well. But first, let's tell the people what you're drinking. It's public confession time.
I'm drinking wine because I'm staying in my brother's place, and it was that or a Truly. I didn't stock up. I didn't take inventory when I got here, so
I'm 100% here for Trulies. Like I'm on board with it. I think there's nothing better on the golf course than a Truly, and that's because I have a weak stomach and I don't handle beer well.
I feel the same way, except I don't play golf. It's more of a poolside kind of.
Thank you. We appreciate that.
Yeah.
A lot of the nation appreciates that.
Well, half of the nation would prefer that I never mention golf again. The other half of nation is, that's part of the reason why they love it. I think half the people come here for golf content, honestly.
I would be curious to do a little poll for the chat. Let us know if you are pro golf or you are anti golf. I know who's going to say what of the names I see there, but there are more names in the chat that I don't know. So go ahead.
Eric, I think Eric says he's golfing right now. He says he's on.
I bet he is.
Oh, wow.
All right, Brian, what's your drink? I gotta pour a little bit more. Do a taste analysis of this new riff, which is what I'm drinking. Yeah. But what are you drinking?
I'm drinking the Jefferson's Cognac Rye right now.
Ooh.
So, buddy gave me a sample of it. It's got interesting flavors. It's pretty light. I think it's in the 90s proof, right? I think, but it's got some good sweetness to it. It doesn't really drink like a rye. It's pretty sweet, and then it's got some citrus, some brightness that I feel like has to be that cognac influence. It's got a little bit of coffee notes to it too, so it does have like a little dark tinge to it, but it's just really drinkable. So that's something I figured I wanted something to drink tonight, but I wanted something easy and didn't have to really think about. So it is one of those. It falls into that category.
Yeah, I mentioned raspberries on this, green apple, honey. I just love New Riff so much. Getting back to the golf thing, we blew up the chat with that one. No. Paul G says golf, coffee, and bourbon are 3 favorite things. Nicholas West, golf is great. John Perkle, I like golf, but golf doesn't like me. Dude, I hear that. I feel that at my core.
I'm sorry that you're subject to the same. I'm really sorry.
I get the shame.
No, I love it.
Matt Schwanda, I splurged on a bottle. This is not golf related, but it's a good comment. I splurged on a bottle of Bardstown Discovery 4 to celebrate the birthday of my daughter this month. Wow, this stuff is insane. Yeah. Yep, it awesome. Is great. Matt, oh my gosh, I love Matt. Too fat for golf, but thinking about foosball lately. Foosball is amazing. I love ping pong is great, but I like the team element of foosball. Andrew Beck, I love golf except when I hate it. Elsa says I only golf for drinks and good company. A lot of golfers. Bottom line is people come here for golf too.
I don't remember why I'm on this anymore.
We'll move past it.
What about Topgolf? I think I would go to Topgolf. Sam, have you ever done Topgolf?
I've done something like it. Not exactly Topgolf, but like the driving range. So I think that's super fun. It's a good anger management. You know what I mean? There's something very satisfying. I've never been on a golf course, but I love the driving range.
The golf course itself can be anger inspiring, whereas the driving range can be anger management because you're just unleashing fury on a white ball. But when you're trying to get that white ball to go someplace specific, it can be deeply frustrating. It's a battle with the self. I think that's why I like it so much. Is I feel like every time I play golf, I'm coming to grips with who I am as a human being.
That's deep.
Yeah.
That is. Yeah. That's way too It's
too deep, too early. We'll pull up. Okay. So I was drinking the New Riff. I promised a bottle pop, and then we'll get into the official interview with Sam. But Sam, tell us about this release. So this is Bardstown, The Prisoner.
Yes. So this was a 10-year Tennessee bourbon that we put into the Prisoner red wine barrels and finished it for 18 months. Came out at about 100 proof, I'm pretty sure, on the nose. At cast strength, that residual wine kind of brought down that ABV in the barrel. So you're going to love it.
So it was super close to 100 proof out of the barrel, because it does say 100 proof exactly.
Oh, I love that.
Yes. So we might have added a little bit of water just to get it to an even. There's always a little bit, even at cast strength offerings, but it was significantly low with the residual red wine kind of in the barrel.
And I might be jumping ahead of. Sorry, I was gonna go ahead, Drew. I think yours might be more pertinent.
Okay, I was gonna say why. I know there's the Pfeiffer Pavitt collaboration. Who else was there's Copper and Kings collaboration, but what is it? I know Danny is pretty active in this, but what is it about the Prisoner Wine Company that's like, oh yeah, let's work with those guys?
Well, they kind of have like more premium or like luxury style brands, right? So, and we're very much kind of premium bourbon, right? So, they've got a great kind of fan base, very recognizable brand. Really, we're in it to build good relationships with different spirit producers, right? And the whole idea of a collaboration series really started as like a one-off kind of creative, fun project just to keep us, interested and entertained while we were waiting for our bourbon to rest. And then it became so well received and such a fun project that we, as we continue to think about people who we want to collaborate with, one of the biggest things too is we want to make sure it's a brand that's big enough that can give us enough barrels so that you guys can find it on the shelf easily. Right?
Which I appreciate, particularly in Milwaukee. As I mentioned, the bourbon wasteland that is Milwaukee. I did actually I did not get this one locally. Tom helped me hustle this out of Ohio. But it was around locally. I just didn't have a shot at it.
Sure. So, as long as they tick off, a few things for us, if they're, great to work with and have a great product and have a brand big enough to supply the barrels, then we're in.
I loved, for the record, I think Pfeiffer Pavitt Batch 2 is the one I had, and it was amazing. I have the Pfeiffer Pavitt XO, which Elsa and Rod probably in the chat helped hustle for me out of the distillery. So, but it's because I love the brand so much, not to just like blow smoke, but I'm just really into some of the stuff Bardstown is doing. And in particular, I had somebody the other day was at a tasting, and two times recently I had one criticism levied against Bardstown. One, it was too expensive. I'm going to defend it for you in just a minute, and I did in a moment. One, it was too expensive. Two, it's a finished bourbon. I was like, hold on just a dang minute here. Okay. Like, it's not the same as a lot of other finished products out there, because a lot of other finished products are 5-year bourbons and ryes, aged or finished for 3 to 6 months secondary. Like, what I love and is so unique about Bardstown is there's an intensity of flavor that comes from the fact that it's super old bourbon, like 9-10 year bourbon. And then it's aged in these secondary casks for like 18 months. And that's unbelievable. And I imagine not cheap, right?
Not cheap. No, but it makes a great product, right?
Right. Yes. So
did they do a second XO that was in the Prisoner, or what was the second one that came out?
So the Pfeiffer Pavitt was really the only one that we called XO because it was from what we bottled in 2019. So it had like a 40-month finish on it by the time we were selling it by the bottle. Prisoner was just not really extra aged, but we did pick out like an incredible barrel. So the Prisoner red wine is a blend of 5 different grape varietals. And we took that kind of same ratio of barrels. So if it was, 50% Zinfandel, which I don't remember exactly what it is. I know it is heavy on Zinfandel. And, just for easy to understand numbers, if we got 100 barrels, we would have made 50 Zinfandel barrels, right? So we kind of kept it in that same respective form. And one of the Syrah barrels is what we did a single barrel fill of in our rick house, and it is excellent. That was a Dan special. He picked that barrel, and he knows his stuff.
So on the nose on this, I get classic well-aged Dickel. And by that, and I'm just assuming it's Dickel, by the way. I know it's non-disclosed.
No, it's just Tennessee. It's just
Tennessee bourbon.
Right.
Tennessee bourbon.
Yeah, obviously. It smells really, really similar to a very well-aged Dickel product, remarkably similar to this guy with a little more complexity added from the wine. So, but when I say it smells like Dickel, what I mean is, like, have you ever been to Cabela's and you go up to the fudge section and they have the roasted nuts in a little fudge hut at Cabela's? So it smells like, or if you're at a carnival, say like normal people, they go to carnivals. I like go sniff the nuts at Cabela's. It smells like that, which I really, really enjoy. That roasted, like pecan, like honey roasted, fresh roasted nuts,
delicious.
In a well-aged Dickel, and then I get candied orange, and then I get like strawberry fruit leather because my kids eat a lot of like handy, snacky kid foods.
Yeah, so, a lot of bright fruit.
Yeah, touch of tobacco and dark chocolate. Really, really delicious, desserty nose. I need to try this next to the Pavitt side by side because it's similar. It's in the same family in that it's red wine. Old Tennessee bourbon finished in red wine. But if it's similar to Pfeiffer, I don't mind it at all because I love that one so much. So
they're hard to compare. They're both delicious and so similar, but different at the same time.
Super sweet. It's really it. I don't want to use the term balanced because that's not descriptive. But I don't get like one flavor and then another flavor. It really feels like a cohesive whole.
That's good.
A good dark chocolate is a good descriptor, though. And Brian knows what I mean when I say good dark chocolate. Like a bad dark chocolate tastes like dirt and carbon and sugar. A good dark chocolate tastes like cherries. It's got like this interesting acidity to it. It's really viscous and creamy, but it does have a roasty essence that it brings with it, and that's what I kind of get.
That's awesome.
The Prisoner.
Brian, what are you look like you're really processing something there.
I just feel like it's got a lot of full body to it. Like if you were drinking wine, like if you're liking a full bodied red or something like that, but you want some brightness, but you also appreciate whiskey, you get I feel like it just layers an extra bit of thickness to the pour because it is whiskey and it's a higher proof beverage than drinking wine. So it's just a very saturated mixture with like a very full bodied but like slightly drying finish. I just think it gives you I feel like a lot of times we talk about whiskeys for flavor, and I feel like this is a whiskey that just gives you a lot of texture to process. And I just don't ever really talk about whiskeys, like drinking whiskeys that way. Maybe people drink scotches that way. I don't know. I'm not really a scotch person, but it just gives you a slightly different side of things to focus on. At least that's what I was kind of processing.
Yeah, I think mouthfeel is a super overlooked character of anything that you're drinking, whiskey or whatever it is. And I think it's really important to have something interesting and obviously, pleasurable in some way. So I think the dry finish is nice. The just like people who like to drink wine for, the tannins really kind of hit you on the finish a little bit harder. But you get all that sweet kind of bourbon palate up front, which just makes it transitional, right? It's an interesting one to sip on.
Yeah, and the fullness of the flavors. By fullness, I mean the age of the bourbon that's present, the oak that you can tangibly pick up, and then the sweetness and the fruitiness that's brought in from the red wine. Again, is what I would go back to and differentiating it from a lot of other finishes. I feel like a lot of rum finishes just like hit you right over the face with rum. I do not like rum finishes generally. Now, I would entertain one from Bardstown because I've liked what you guys have.
There's one coming.
So is there really? Well,
this year.
We'll see. That may be a misstep, but we'll see how it goes. Where are you getting? What can you tell us about that one, actually?
So yeah, it's gonna be maybe released this fall if it tastes ready. We're kind of still sitting on. We're still kind of waiting for that like magical turn point. So it may not happen. But it's with plantation rum, and I forget exactly what plantation barrels they gave us. I want to say it was Plantation XO, and I'm really excited about that one because, I've definitely had some bad rum finished whiskeys, but I've had a lot of bad finished whiskeys in general.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of it, you kind of mentioned it earlier, like a lot of people, new distilleries or new brands that need to just push out a product quick to make some money, will take something very, very young and finish it very, very quickly, just to kind of, mask up all the, youthfulness and sell it. Right. So it's definitely cool to see like a luxury product or a premium product in the finished whiskey category, because it's almost an oxymoron with how people kind of regard that category most of the time.
Yeah, I think for me, I would say that Bardstown has really helped open my eyes to what, like, the glories of finishing whiskey, like how good a finished whiskey could be. I mean, Scotches do it all the time,
right?
But they're often operating with well-aged products that finish for a long time. That hasn't happened in American whiskey much, but until you all started doing your thing. So I'm pretty jacked for more learning. All right.
What's really interesting. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. What's really interesting is that the finished whiskey category isn't actually like a federally protected category like bourbon or straight bourbon whiskey or any of those things. So I think if we could make it a federally protected category, then we could eliminate some of the nonsense that's out there.
Nonsense.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's all I was going to say. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
So you're telling me that I'm not going to be able to get a well-aged Bardstown Bourbon Company honey whiskey,
like honey barrel?
Honey?
Excuse me.
He just got the Bell Mead one, and he's been picking up these Starlight honey finished. Where it's like somebody ages their.
I'm also
honey
moderately fat
and
love sweets, so I'm like anything with honey in it. I'm like, I get all for it.
I'm into it too. You know what I think would be really cool, actually, and this is going to sound just bonkers for most people, but like, so I'm a bartender by nature, so I'm not trying to say, I'm not trying to say a flavored whiskey, but like some sort of like infused whiskey with like honey, coffee, and cinnamon, kind of like a little like miel style. Like
you got two coffee people here that'll help you with that miel product.
How delicious would that be?
Yeah,
we get some Saigon cinnamon in there because we got to elevate it because it's boutique. Come on now.
There's a lot of pretty killer hiveries, if that's what you call a honey producing place in Wisconsin. So a little Wisconsin honey, a little Kentucky know-how.
Come on.
Yeah.
Come on.
I mean, this has to happen. It has to happen right now.
Okay, so I will. Where was I go? I mean, I have, and I very much enjoy it, but it's not quite a honey, and actually I don't quite remember the process. It's the Goodwood Honey Ale, but it was Copper and King's brandy I don't.
Yeah.
What's the path of that product, real quick? I
So
know it's a
yeah,
slight tangent, but it's a very good bottle. So
that was a very small release that we did, and
Mhm.
it didn't get a whole lot of hype as much as some of the other ones, but I thought it was
Mhm.
incredible. That
Oh
also
yeah,
had a really dry finish. It wasn't honey like at least the honey that I got on it wasn't like
right.
super sickly sweet. It was more like floral and kind of like earthy, sugary in a way.
Mhm.
Anyways, so yeah, we had honey ale barrels from Goodwood. Goodwood is a local brewery in downtown Louisville, and they have another one somewhere in Indiana. And they aged a honey ale in Copper and King's brandy barrels. So,
Very
and
good.
I'm sure those brandy barrels were probably bourbon barrels before they were brandy barrels, because that's how brandy works too. So just the longevity of all of these barrels, I think, is really cool. Just extra seasoning, extra time and oak, and it creates a really unique story to that bourbon and the flavors that you get in there from all of
So
those different things.
tapping into your bartender question again, and hopefully this isn't like an insulting question when it comes to a spirit that's like, the prisoner release. But have
Uh-huh.
you made a Boulevardier that uses like this prisoner 2 as a base?
I have not, but I have. I do think that that would be delicious. A Boulevardier is my go-to cocktail
Mhm.
for like just any bar that has, a cocktail menu. I'm ordering a Boulevardier.
For
So
those of us who don't know what a Boulevardier is, because we're cocktail ignorant,
yes.
why don't you tell us what that is?
So it is a riff on a Negroni. A Negroni is equal parts gin, sweet vermouth, and Campari, which is a red bitter
Mhm.
liqueur. So a Boulevardier is when you swap in bourbon for gin. I was actually kind of a riff an American bartender came up with while bartending in Europe during Prohibition, because that's what bartenders had to do with, the careers that they chose during Prohibition. So it's just a great anytime cocktail. And it's
Mhm.
also great because even if you're not a savvy with cocktail techniques or tools, it's very hard to mess up if you just measure equal parts and throw an orange peel, little oil expression on top. It's like impossible to mess up.
Nice.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I want to get into cocktails because I know coffee backwards, forward, sideways. I know coffee. I've learned an immense amount about American whiskey and Scotch, but I've never put forward the effort to become a mixologist of any measure. I just haven't done it. I'm like, this is amazing by itself. I don't really want to put stuff in it. Like, I'm just happy with this.
And when you go
That
to BBC
said,
and you have their old fashioned, I mean, you're
I
kind of
can't I
ruined. It's
can't do
like,
better
what
than
can you
that.
even make?
Yeah.
What
Yeah,
can
we're
you
gonna
make
get to
anymore?
that later. But yeah, that's good enough for me. I'm good there. So yeah, maybe I'll come. Do you guys do classes? Cocktail
I
classes?
I do classes.
Yeah,
So
you did a live one like this week, right?
last week I did one. I think I
Okay.
have no idea where the time has gone.
You went live on Instagram. I remember that.
Yeah, I went live on Instagram to do my cocktail prep the day before
Uh,
we did a class. So about once a month. I'm trying to do them once a month. I started doing it during quarantine as a way to not lose my mind, mostly.
yeah.
Um, but I started doing weekly virtual cocktail classes where it was just free to sign up, like you would sign up for a tour, like on our website. And you would get a Zoom link, and you'd get a shopping list of ingredients, and then we'd all make cocktails together, and it was super fun. And
Mm.
since you know life is much busier now, um, I've slowed them down to once a month, but they are really cool, and you should definitely sign up for the next one, which I haven't posted yet. But it's gonna
Yeah.
be it's gonna be bourbon tiki, and it's
Okay.
gonna be so fun.
Yeah, I will do that. I think my wife would love that. I think we'll do it together. That would be great.
Yes, it's a great date night.
Sweet. Well, we'll get to our outline now because now we've been talking for 30 minutes, Sam, and we didn't properly introduce what you do
Cool.
at Bardstown. So I apologize for that. But why don't you tell us what's your official title? Give us a summary of your role and a picture into your day-to-day life at Bardstown Bourbon Company.
Okay. That last part's going to be very difficult because it's always different. But I am the national brand ambassador, the first and only for the company. So with that comes a lot of ambiguity and kind of an open book for me to write, right? Like what's my contribution to the brand going to be. So I mostly focus on consumer engagements, obviously. So it's been a really wild journey because I started with the company 3.5 years ago, just about, and I helped open the cocktail program under Dan Calloway in the restaurant. I helped curate and open our tour center. And then at the top of 2020 last year, before all hell broke loose, I got national brand ambassador title and, was promised, this life of travel and fun and kind of new experiences and new challenges. And then boom, it all just like disappeared like that. So it was a very weird year. And like everybody else, I had to pivot, very thankful that I kept my job. And now this year, I feel like even though I've been kind of national brand ambassadoring for already over a year now, I feel like now I'm just kind of coming into my role with the company, by traveling a lot with our mobile unit and just focusing on brand education and just kind of brand face-to-face time. Like it means a lot. I remember when I first moved to Kentucky and seeing a bar that had more than 4 or 5 bourbons on it was like amazing, right? And that was not that long ago. And I love being able to provide that kind of reaction to people in their hometowns and in their cities where they, don't see bourbon producers as much as we do in Kentucky, right?
Yeah.
So it's been a wild ride. I'm always kind of figuring out what I can do to be, to make the brand bigger and better. And then one huge part of my job is helping plan and execute World's Top Whiskey Taster, which we're getting ready to launch this year again.
I was going to ask about that. I didn't put it in our outline, but we talked about that with Matt when he was on our show.
Yeah. So World's Top Whiskey Taster, it's annual, or its premiere debut was last year during COVID. So it was incredibly challenging because once we kind of said, okay, move forward, there was no turning back. And we honestly, I think a lot of us had no idea that COVID, was going to be what it turned out to be.
Yeah.
Is this going to be 3 weeks? Is this going to be 3 months? We're still in it. You know what I mean? So we just had to make the best with what we had. And I think we had a very successful competition, but this year is going to be ridiculously bigger. And very excited about that, live in person instead of virtually. So it's going to be really, really cool. And we're going to get ready to kind of announce, I think in July 1st. So we've got a couple weeks left, but July 1st, we're going to do a call to entry and there's going to be all the information out there.
I think you're going to get a lot of entries this year. I mean, Brian and I are both going to enter. We didn't enter last year. I mean, we want to give Matt a run for his money, obviously.
Yeah, Matt actually told us that he challenged us to compete because there's no way we could beat him. But then he wants to see us crushed. I think that's in so many words what he told us on his stream with us.
I can just see his facial expressions as you're saying those words. That makes a lot of sense. Yeah, it's gonna be fun and tough, and it's a really wild experience. I mean, honestly, like if I didn't work for the brand, I'm kind of mad that I can't enter the competition because I would just geek out so hard to be able to participate in a competition of this kind. I think it's really neat, and especially because of COVID last year and this kind of boom of bourbon communities and clubs and the growth of these communities. Like, it's cool to geek out about bourbon. It's an American spirit. You know what I mean? Like, if we're gonna geek out about one thing, like let's let bourbon be it.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I started my channel in the midst of COVID, and we got 80 people watching us talk about it. That's pretty amazing. While you drink wine, but
Yeah, sorry. Beggars can't be choosers.
No,
I love
yeah.
all spirits. I love all spirits.
I actually really like wine too. I just don't drink very much of it. And it's because like for the last 6 years, it seems like I would drink wine with my wife who's been pregnant or nursing a lot. So she hasn't been able to drink much, which is a bummer. But we're done now. We're 3 and out.
What would you say is your top spirit? Like would it be whiskey? Like, is it wine? Yeah, Sam.
Yeah, it's definitely whiskey. And maybe not bourbon exclusively. I think the whole whiskey category is my favorite. But second to that is anybody who knows me knows this about me, is tequila. Like I love, or agave spirits.
Okay.
I should say tequila
Let's
mezcals.
go.
And I would like to know a lot more about them. And I'm a certified spirit specialist, so I have a pretty, I know all about the plant and I'm fascinated by it, kind of for the same reason I'm fascinated by whiskey, like the agriculture behind it, kind of the mystique of the plant itself that I've never seen in person. But I just love tequila for and like reposados and stuff too. That barrel on it, I think is real good.
Pretty
sipping
prime
spirit. Yeah.
Just prior to diving super deep into bourbon, I almost got into agave spirits, and I held myself back. I was like, no, I'm not gonna have another rabbit hole to go down, and instead go
down all the rabbit holes, man. I really think you should. And I think the more you can get into other spirits, the more you can learn about spirits in general too. Like there's so many just connections and parallels between how other spirits are made and what grows in that country, and what's available. All those things are incredibly interesting. So it's on my bucket list to go to some agave farms and tequila distilleries.
Yeah. There's a friend that I had, and she had a chocolate shop in California, and she had this one chocolate maker that we were both very big fans of, that had made a chocolate bar initially specifically for her. And she had said that there was a particular pairing of this chocolate bar. This chocolate bar, I think, had it was like a milk chocolate with specks of like salt, and I don't know, it wasn't super fancy, but the taste was so good. It had like cocoa nib and sea salt on the back. But she's like, but the perfect pairing is it with the Fortaleza Añejo. And
that's a good one.
I remember visiting her and then getting a chance to try the two of them together, and it was just one of those flavor combinations that was just wonderful.
Banger.
So, and I've not bought a bottle since because, I just don't drink tequila that much.
I've got 2. I mean, I like it too, but I mean, it's been similar to Brian. Like it feels like you can only choose so many rabbit holes, and I tend to be obsessive. So it's like I don't just like dabble. I'm gonna learn a little bit for a few months. It's like, no, if I'm gonna do something, I'm gonna do it hard. And
I mean, could you imagine a tequila and golf like live stream? That would be terrible.
Yeah, I agree. I actually agree.
It'd be terrible.
Yeah. All right.
There's a great bar downtown Louisville. I got to plug this place because it's like a paradise for me. It's called the Silver Dollar. It's an old firehouse station. So it's got like the big, huge doors that come up, and they open it up in the summertime and in warmer months. And it's only whiskey and agave. And they have like an extensive list of single barrels of both whiskey and agave single barrels that are incredible. So next time you guys want to come to Louisville and hang out, we'll go there. We'll have tequila and whiskey and some good barbecue too.
I love
it. Brian is a Louisvilleite. He lives there.
That's right.
Yeah. One of our big fans, he's in the chat. Tom, when he came to town, we got to go there and we had some pours. We didn't have tequila, just whiskey.
Dude, I've been there before, but I didn't even realize that I was too focused on the bourbon, which, I mean, to be fair, that's why I was in Louisville. But
it's just outside of downtown. It is busy because everyone goes there. Like industry people all go there and stuff, but it's not busy like downtown touristy busy. And that's just so good. You just
Yeah, I
around
mean,
people
if you want to
that,
go
like,
be around
are there for the
industry
same
people
reason.
too, yeah, like it'd be more fun to be around industry people versus touristy people. Nothing against tourists, because that's kind of what I am.
No,
So,
industry people are the best. Yeah, they do industry night there every Monday.
nice.
Yeah, which is pretty fun. Pretty fun to do.
All right, well, we can have like a party when I come down again. I'm not sure when that's. Well, it's probably going to
I'm
be
game.
July. We're trying to get that Middle West pick worked in July. Anyway, we'll talk about that later. Because we have gone through one question in our outline so far, and that is, who are you?
Sorry.
I
Which
told
is a
you,
great
like,
question anyway. But.
yeah, no doubt. I told Sam, like, hey, normally we go till 10. If you need to jump off sooner, that's fine. She said, no, I'm good till 10. We're gonna be on here till like 11. We'll see.
Yeah, don't tell her that. Don't
Be
tell
the
her that.
longest
She'll just
podcast we
immediately hate
ever
us.
did.
I might drink the whole bottle of wine, just forewarning. But
Well, we'll keep pouring the whiskey. And that Prisoner is so good. It goes down way too easy. It's
dangerous.
So good.
Dangerous, yes.
Yeah, if you guys, Nation, if you haven't gotten a bottle of any of these Bardstown special releases, because you're like, oh, it's $130. It's $130 well spent. You should do it. You will not be sorry. You have the Droopy Whiskey stamp of approval. And on the ones I've tried, which I have high confidence in the others, but the Pfeiffer Pav and the Prisoner and the Discovery Batch 3 and 4, those are the ones I've had. They've all been fantastical. All right, Sam, we're going to talk about coffee for a hot minute. We were doing this in the chat.
I'm so ready.
Yeah. So what's your relationship with coffee? Because this is important if we're going to be friends.
So, well, I think you'll be satisfied with the answer.
Okay.
No bullshit. I am the biggest coffee snob, snood, whatever.
Geek.
I take my coffee so seriously. Not that
Nice.
I am against a hotel pot of coffee in the morning. Like, caffeine serves a purpose, and I get that, and I'll take what I can get on certain occasions, but I am such a snob when it comes to coffee. I don't think there's actually a beverage that I'm a bigger snob about, whiskey included, than coffee, because it's like ritual. It is. I used to be a barista, and so did my partner. And we do Chemex pour overs at home. That's how we make our coffee.
Drew, this is deeper than Blake. This is great.
Yeah. Blake fames
where did you
coffee.
Where did you barista?
I baristed at I don't want to say it's not the greatest coffee shop, because it is. It just doesn't have the greatest coffee, or at least it didn't when I was there. But it didn't have anything to do with it. But I started at I don't even know if it's around anymore, but Vint over on Frankfurt.
Yeah.
So when I first moved to Kentucky, I left with clothes, a bag of clothes, and that was it. I didn't have furniture, I didn't have anything. And
it's gonna be a great story.
And I also sold my car to move to Kentucky. Like, I had this big Kentucky dream, and I made it happen. But I had to do a lot to get here, and I was a barista from 6 a.m. to noon, about 3 or 4 days a week. They hired me on to work 2 days a week, and that absolutely never happened, because I was like the oldest person there. And everybody else was like in college and calling out all the time. And I was like, well, this much closer to an apartment. And I was breaking myself by doing 6 a.m. to noon at Vint. And then I would bartend at Decca from like 3 p.m. to about midnight or 1.
Is that where you met Dan at Decca?
Yes.
Decca family.
Yes.
I love it. And Mike or Davey Butterworth.
Yes. I love Davey.
Let's go.
So it's funny because it was with coffee that I really learned how to kind of tune my palate. Because I found that so crazy interesting. I really dove into craft cocktails when I started at Decca, and working at the coffee shop in the morning, everybody takes that shit seriously, and talk about like kind of exhaling after you kind of like slowly slip, the exhale, the flavors that you get. I was like, this is so cool. And I feel like it like primed me for Bardstown Bourbon Company, because I was literally practicing it. I was like, what do I get on Colombian? What do I get on Guatemala? Like, where are the blueberries that everybody keeps saying? You know what I mean?
Yeah,
and I had no idea that Bardstown was going to happen until it was like right there. And I was like, oh, well, I got this. So coffee means a lot to me. I was a bigger answer than you asked for, but
No, yeah, that's 100% what I wanted to hear. And I was gonna have you next take us back and tell us about your introduction into bourbon. But I feel like you teased a little too much because you're like, I had this big old Kentucky dream. You gotta go back further. You gotta tell us about this Kentucky dream, this process to get to Kentucky, and then ultimately, how does whiskey finally find its way in?
So I grew up in Peoria, Illinois, which
That's
was
right down the
once,
road. Yeah, I know
yeah,
Peoria. Yeah.
yeah, we're like neighbors.
Yeah, right.
So I, very, very unoriginal story for a young person, but I did not want to go to college because I've been working in restaurants since I was 15, and I really do love the industry.
Mm.
Like I love the busyness and the chaos and the experience that you provide and being a part of people's memories and special occasions. I loved it. I ate it up, and I was making really good money. So I didn't go to college, and I started kind of climbing the ladder of bartending. Started off at Chili's, and then thought it'd be cool to work at like the diviest bar in the world, and which I will not name. 'Cause you don't
I'll
want to
just
go
go there
there.
tomorrow. Yeah.
Offline, we can talk about it. I'll
Yeah,
take
you
guys
can
there
just drop it
sometime.
in the StreamYard chat.
Okay.
Let me know.
I'm about it.
But that taught me a lot of lessons about how to kind of, especially for a woman, like how to stick up for yourself,
Yeah.
confidence, how
Yeah.
to kick somebody out of a bar, how
Mhm.
to know, see red flags before they happen, and like so many life
Mhm.
skills from that job and Chili's. And then kind of went into finer dining, and then at a certain point just became very bored, very complacent. And I was like, man, did I fuck up? Sorry, I
Mm.
don't know if I can say that word
No,
on
you're
here.
fine. You're fine.
Like, should I have gone to college? Like, what am I doing? I know I like what I'm doing, but I'm not learning anymore. And being a bartender um, at a finer dining place where, just to be frank, a lot of really freaking old people went, I dealt a lot with sexism. Like, it's there. Like,
Yeah.
I'm sorry, can that bartender make my Manhattan?
Oof.
Why? Well, because I don't think a woman knows how to make a Manhattan. Like literally things people would say to me on a weekly basis. Maybe not always daily. So it then became this like fire and this kind of like, I'm going to do it out of spite. Like, I'm going to know all there is to know about bourbon. I'm going to make a better Manhattan than any guy counterpart that I work with. And I really started to just love bourbon and was like, man, where does this stuff come from? Comes from Kentucky. I had my best friend at the time had family that lived in Lexington, and she took me to go see her family, and we spent a couple nights in Louisville. And I was like, oh, if you were going to work anywhere in the world to rub elbows with the right people, like just bartending, right? Like it would be downtown Louisville. Like
Mhm.
just
Yeah.
be a good person, be a good
Mhm.
worker, treat every guest as if they could be the CEO of a startup bourbon company. And sometimes you just got to make one right decision and the universe just helps you. And that was it for me. It was just like, yeah, just risk it all, go to Kentucky with nothing and see if you can make it work. And, I had to do the barista bartender gig, which Davey Butterworth, I remember very well telling me,
Yes.
what did he call them? He called them clopins or something, like when you close
Yeah.
the bar but
Yeah, the
open
clopin.
in the coffee shop. And I was like, oh man, I'm in it. Like I've never felt more alive than
Then clopening.
clopening,
Yeah.
honestly, and just like guzzling coffee and just trying to make it happen. And it feels so good, 4 years later to see that like it worked out for me.
Yeah.
So
Thankfully, Kentucky up until recently is one of those places when you're trying to make it, at least it doesn't break the bank too hard.
that's right, cost of living. I mean,
Yeah.
we're not trying to let the secret out too much that Louisville's the best place in the world,
Sure. Well,
but
yeah, it's changing even now, but
but it is pretty great. Yeah.
yeah. Awesome. Yeah, that's a great. I don't even have any follow up questions. Brian, do you have any follow up questions on the introduction to bourbon that was just so well told?
No, that was great. So, I mean, but there was one thing I was curious about, because it's like
Go for it.
while you were at Chili's is when you started to enjoy bourbon. Is that
No, no. I think when I was at Chili's, that was my worst bartending career. I remember somebody once asked for like a vodka soda, and I gave him like vodka Sprite, and I didn't understand that
Oops.
soda meant soda water. I was like, what do you mean soda? I gave you soda.
I was just thinking to myself, what it would be like to start getting into bourbon, specifically working at a Chili's. Like, oh man, I love Jack Daniels. What can I say? Or, you know what I mean? It's like, what?
No, I think everybody too, like I think you have to kind of like drink Captain Morgan in before you realize what real rum is, and in the same kind of in the whiskey category. I don't like to name brands, but yeah, it's it wasn't until I started working kind of at the finer dining restaurant that I really started to get into bourbon, because of all of the crazy comments that old men would make to me.
Huh.
I was like, I'm gonna drink it.
So it was really because of which I don't understand this, but it was really because like these old racist, misogynistic, sexist white dudes won't trust me with their drink, that I will prove these dudes, and I could come up with a more choice adjective, but I will prove these guys wrong.
Yeah. I mean, they were definitely sexist. I don't know about all those other things.
Yeah, I just imposed that from some of my own experiences.
It definitely paints a good. It definitely paints a good villain. But yes, like most things in my life, that I feel like a lot of women and a lot of girls can relate to this. Is like you just always want to prove that you can hang with the boys, and it's not to impress them. It's just to be a little bit. Just to be regarded a little bit higher. You know what I mean? So like I was very athletic as a kid, and women's sports still to this day, you just don't watch them like men's sports. They don't make the same money. They don't get the same audiences. So it was always just, there really is just a very, just from a very young age, just this kind of seed that we plant in women that says we're always going to be second to men. And so naturally, women try to prove themselves, and sometimes they do it in the wrong way, and that sucks. But for a lot of the things that I decided to do, it's because I wanted to prove that I didn't mean a man to do it. Now, I still don't know how to change a flat tire, and if I get a flat tire, I'm calling one of you guys.
Well, to be honest, I don't know that I do either. So.
Because, like there are some things I could and should know how to do. But I'm all about getting somebody to do that for me. But anyways, yeah. So, all these men would order, and just, men at the bar that were bartending on me, or even women that were waiting on me, like, oh, you won't like that. Like, take a Cosmo. Fuck you. Like, I'll take a Manhattan, thank you, or a whiskey neat. Yeah. And it does, it does make you feel, and then you grow a taste for it. It's like anything else. I actually think Maker's Mark was my first bourbon that I had neat. I think we all kind of started with like Jack and Cokes and things like that. And then when I was ready to like drop the Coke and start like really getting into like bourbon and how it tastes and how it's made and stuff like that, I picked out Maker's because it had a beautiful bottle. And I saw it at every bar. It was something I knew I could order everywhere, instead of being like, oh, well, you have to have a plan B if you're here or there. Like, it's everywhere, so drink it, right? And I loved it, and I drank it on the rocks. And it got to the point where our little like industry bar that we would go after work, which was also a huge dive, they would just pour me a Maker's Mark on the rocks the second I walked in, without even asking me what my order was. Like, that felt cool. And we do a lot of things in life to feel cool, and I feel cool. I still feel cool drinking bourbon. I think bourbon is the coolest.
Yeah, I completely agree, 100%. And thank you for sharing so transparently on all of that. I really appreciate, like, a lot of what we want to do on our little pod and channel is, highlight the stories of the people. We're all obsessive about the product, no doubt, but I'm really curious about the people who are making it happen and the whys. Like, I just love the question of why. And so you to be transparent about your why, I appreciate that. Let's get back into bourbon. Before we do that, folks in the chat, a lot of you are hitting me with questions, which, hey, thanks for that. Questions for Sam specifically, but I've got like a bunch of them myself, and we're having a great chat, and so I'm not sure I'm going to get through them all, but I will endeavor to leave just a little bit of time at the end for Q&A. So if you want your question answered, I'm going to make you super chat it. If not, just ask me at the very end, and we'll try and throw as many of them in as possible. But I think Tom asked what you're doing in Chicago. You're on that touring Bardstown thing. What is the official name of that? So I'll kind of reset, because I'm sure Brian will cut some of this out. But you find yourself in Chicago right now, and what is it that you and the Bardstown, or some of the Bardstown crew, are up to with this tour?
Yeah, so we have built this really beautiful mobile tasting bar. That's what we call it. Not very cute or catchy, I realize, but it's the mobile tasting bar. And it's kind of like a little tiny home built for traveling across the country and spreading the good word about Bardstown. So it's definitely designed to kind of mock our distillery. So the outside wood paneling, the moss wall inside, the logos, the aesthetic, all very much fits what our distillery looks like. And really, the idea kind of came about because as soon as COVID hit, for a lot of brands, they could, I don't want to speak out of turn. I don't know what it's like for those brands, but bigger brands that are pretty much well established and well distributed globally even could kind of sit back and say, like, our bourbon's going to sell, like, it'll be fine. But for a brand that's growing and kind of just getting their name out there, it was like, man, we really need to, like, this is not the time for us to lay anybody off or to stop selling and doing events. So we had to rethink about how we could stay in front of consumers, in front of people, bourbon drinkers and Bardstown fans, so naturally the idea of something that would allow us to do outdoor events was the most reasonable thing. It took us 8 months to build it, and then by the time we got it out there, we saw a lot of restrictions being lifted and everybody ready to socialize, ready to get to an event where they could be safe and socialize. And we've been providing this experience now. I think Illinois is our 6th state that we've been in. And we're going to go all over the country as we just, want to just keep pouring bourbon for people. It's
Nice.
Pretty great. Yeah, it's a pretty easy gig.
What all do you have on the trailer? What bourbons are you carrying with, or what products are you carrying with you?
Yeah,
Fusion,
so
obviously.
Yeah, honestly, we're pretty much only sampling Fusion, and here's why. Because you guys want more discovery and you want more prisoner.
Of course.
And legit, because we do this week to week. We're sampling like hundreds of people a week. If we were to dip into the already slim pot, skimpy pot of collaborations and discoveries, that would just mean less bottles for you to be able to buy.
I appreciate that. Yeah.
So I feel like at this point, everybody knows that they're good, and if they're pretty much already committed to buying it before they try it, if they're considering it. So trying to leave as many bottles on the shelves as possible. But Fusion 5 just got released. I don't even know if it's in our gift shop yet, but it will be as soon as Fusion 4 runs out. And so we've been tasting that a lot in the past couple of weeks, and people are stoked. And I'm not just saying this, but I don't think Fusion 1 through 5 all just consecutively get better. There are such different flavor profiles from blend to blend and release to release that I really feel like you can pick favorites. If you like a spicier flavor profile, you're really gonna like 4. If you like something really kind of traditional and well full bodied and well balanced, then like 5 is going to be for you. 5 is so
Yeah.
good.
That's what I want. Yeah.
Yeah. And people are just crushing it. It's
What's
Sweet.
the makeup of that? Do you know what that is?
yeah. So there is, it's going to have 70% of our product in it, which is the most that we've ever put in.
Yeah.
It's always been
Let's
60%.
go.
And the sourced product gets a little bit younger. It's an 11 year, still a great age statement. So we've got 30% of the bottle is an 11 year that has a pretty traditional, I think 18% rye mash bill. Could be mistaken. And then the other two that make up 70% of the blend that are our product, one is a 4 grain. And I've tasted that one straight from the barrel. And I think it's one of our best recipes that we do. And then the other one has, the other one that we produce has an 18% rye. The sourced has 13% rye. I just remembered. That's a fact. So it's mostly our 3 and 4 year old product, but it's incredible and really cool just to see how blending can make such a difference on quality, because people are shocked. Like I've been sampling a lot of people 4 and 5 side by side. And even though 4 has 13-year product in it and has more source product in it, more of that 13-year product, and we kind of drop that amount and we drop that age in 5, everybody thinks that series 5 is older. Like everybody that I've tasted, they're like, wow, this is like much richer, much smoother, like more full bodied. And I'm like, no, it's just blending. It's just, you can take A and B and create completely different flavors that don't really trace back. Yeah. Like that don't trace back to either one of them. Right. So, it's just the coolest. Blending is so cool.
Yeah. That's exciting. Yeah. When I tasted 4, I thought, well, there's layers here. Like I can taste the older product in it and I can taste the younger product. Like there's the younger product is standing out a little bit in 4. So I'm really curious to try 5 and see how that has changed. So pretty jacked for that.
Yeah.
As you talk about, I'm going to back up just a little bit. As you talk about products with that, and when you're talking about 2, like one of your first neat pours having Maker's Mark, where have you landed in terms of like profile of whiskey or bourbon specifically that you like to drink? Do you have like a profile that you're like, this is it?
No, I don't really have a flavor profile per se, but I do have a reaction that I like. And I'm going to steal this amazing quote from one of the coolest women I've ever worked with, Randy Densford, who also started at Decca. She worked.
Yes, Decca's in the house.
Yeah, she worked with Bardstown for a bit, and now she's the beverage director at Barn 8. Super cool chick.
Cool.
She has this saying that, and she started when we were at Decca. Sorry, I'm going on a little tangent, but it all makes sense. When we started at Decca, or were working at Decca, she was in the kitchen and had never worked front of house a day in her life, and then came up to me with some like ingredient that they couldn't use in the kitchen anymore. And she's like, could you use this in a cocktail? I was like, I don't know. You tell me. Like, you're the culinary person. So right then and there, we made this cocktail together and it was amazing. And then she just went into this like cocktail rabbit hole. And now she's, the beverage director at Barn 8. But she likes to say when she gives a customer a cocktail, the best like satisfaction that she can get is with an eyebrow raise, like on the first drink, just to kind of go like, and that's what I look for in whiskey. Really roundabout answer. I like one that can make me raise my eyebrow. I like one that is interesting because I do have an unpopular opinion that all the bourbons you have on your back bar are amazing. And I don't think regardless of what the price tag says on the shelf in the liquor stores, I think they're all incredible. I really do. Very seldomly do I come across a bad bourbon, but I have had a bad bourbon. I think it's much easier to just pick one and you're going to love it, because this day and age, people know how to make good bourbon and what qualifies a good bourbon, right? So I think finding a specific flavor profile, not for me, but one that's just unique, where like either the mouthfeel is unique or it's kind of transitional from front to finish, or the nose gives me the idea that it's going to taste like this, but then it tastes like that. Like I don't know, I like to think about it, because it's so easy when we're drinking to be very not in the moment where we're just kind of drinking because we're nervous, we're talking to each other, and anything that kind of can bring me back to the experience and say like, hey, this is in your glass, this is tasty. It kind of grabs your attention like that. That's what I look forward to.
Do you have any of those on the forefront of your mind that you could mention?
The big eyebrow raise, the things that have just floored you, the ones that stand out and you went like, wow, that changed.
Yeah.
That changed me.
I think before I started working with Bardstown, I'm gonna leave Bardstown product out of it just to
that's
sound
fair. Yeah.
honest.
Unbiased.
Johnny Drum. I thought Johnny Drum was so good. It had just like this spice and this richness, and it was super dark, and it had this crazy wax seal. Like everything's a part of the experience to me. Like the bottle, opening it, all of it, and like I had to call two friends to help me open the bottle because the wax was so, and then it just like crumbled off, and I was like, what is this bourbon? But then I got it to my lips and it was so good that I was like surprised, honestly. And I love Willet. They're one of my favorite distilleries. But I was just like so amped up to have a terrible bourbon because it was giving me a terrible time trying to open it. And then I was like, boom, this is awesome. So that was a really good one. And then, recently I had people on the road constantly hand me samples of bourbon, which please don't stop doing that. This guy, while I've been in Illinois, gave me a sample. He actually gave it to me for my boyfriend, who also works for the company. But I was like, I'm going to tap into this.
You have to, yeah.
Yeah. It was a tequila finished bourbon. So a bourbon finished in tequila barrels. And I've been very interested in this for a while. It was from Few, which is an Illinois brand. And I've been very interested in this for a while, and I didn't hate it. And I thought it was very interesting, and I drank the whole thing. So that was my impression there. But I was like, this is really cool. And I think we should do something like that too someday. Try to make that happen. Tequila barrel finish.
It's unfortunate that you can't compete in World Whiskey Taster when everyone's trying to train you while you're out on the road.
Yes. Honestly, guys, if I was in World's Top Whiskey Taster, there would be no competition. I am so good. I am so good at it. Yeah. But,
Yeah, that's like, I feel
more opportunity for you guys.
Yeah, we should have given you samples to blind taste on this just so you could back it up.
I have friends do this. I've made friends from afar that now like to
send you blinds.
Send me blind samples. Yep, somebody from Texas did just a few weeks ago. One was a Pappy Van Winkle, like a vintage Pappy Van Winkle. And then one was like Poor Man's Van Winkle. It was like a blend. Somebody said that they could make taste just like Pappy. They tasted nothing alike. Nothing alike. And I haven't told him what I think is what yet, but I will
but
now.
They're not similar.
Yeah, I didn't think they were similar at all, which was kind of crazy. But
yeah, I'm sitting on a blind from Andrew Beck, who's in the chat, which Andrew will do that at some point, when we get a little bit of time. Next week we don't have a guest. End of June we have Joe Henry from J Henry on.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, that'll be fun. You got to get you some samples for that, Brian. That's neither here nor there.
Send them to Sam too. She'll pick the best one for us, and then
best one from Jay Henry.
Put her name on the pick.
Love it.
Let me hit the outline here and just see where we're at.
I would skip. I see a couple you should just skip and just get back into the journey stuff.
Yeah.
We need to keep talking collection and yada yada.
Blah 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 blah. Let's go to. All right, getting back to your role at Bardstown, national brand ambassador sounds really, really cool. Like you said, the travel and you meet new people, share whiskey with folks. which you had already talked about, the elements of that you love, but what do you think is kind of overblown? Like, what's hard or mundane or boring about what you do that people just probably don't understand? Because I mean, to me right now it sounds wonderful, but what's rough?
You're allowed to say talking to two dumb podcast dudes on YouTube.
That,
No,
hey,
no,
like,
no.
You're
This
fully
is
allowed to
fun.
say that.
DMs like, hey, can you come on our podcast?
The stuff that I don't know, the stuff that I don't like about the job or stuff that gets overwhelming or tedious or mundane is a short list. Honestly, I'm not trying to say that just to be a star brand ambassador, but I think a lot of it is honestly, okay, I get mad at women a lot because I get mad at women that say things that this is silly. This is probably a very unexpected answer.
Let's have it.
That kind of demean themselves and women as a category, and it's not their fault. Once again, I'm sorry. I'm a huge feminist. I'm not trying to spray feminism on everything,
Please
but like
this podcast is about you.
I give away a lot of t-shirts and hats and stuff, and I noticed that every time a large woman asks for like a large size, like anything large, extra large, or double XL, it always follows with an apology. And I'm like, what's wrong with you? Stop giving me an excuse or an apology for getting the XL. Like, I don't care. You're beautiful. Like, it really does bother me after a long time. And I know that's a really weird thing to say, but like, it's been so often lately, especially like just doing, handing out swag after swag after swag at all these events. I'm like seeing that it's so much more common than anybody else might think, because nobody really has that interaction as often as I do. And I'm like, why are women not? And also women that just like don't speak because they don't understand bourbon. I'm like, you don't have to understand bourbon to say it reminds you of this. Like I don't know. And it's a handful of men too, but it's largely women that just are like, well, I don't know, or I can't drink this straight, so I just don't like bourbon. I'm like, hey, public service announcement. If you can't drink bourbon straight your first time trying it, you are not failing.
You're in the majority.
You're in the majority. Like, it's fine. And then when I like tell them to drink it with some water, they're like, oh no, I can't do that. I'm like, why not? There's already water in it. Like, water is a main ingredient in this bourbon. Like, adding a little filtered water isn't going to ruin anything. Isn't going to cover anything up. Like, we sample sometimes up to like 300 people at an event. And the amount of people that want to turn down the bourbon because it's so strong, but won't take a few freaking drops of water because they think like there are a lot of ways to enjoy bourbon. I hate that. It really does get to me after a while, because I get a little forceful with it. I'm like, just take some freaking water.
Do you feel like, I feel like you hear people say this when they're on like their pedestal of like, no, appreciate whiskey however you want to. Do you see that like practically play out? The way you say that make it seem like you don't see that practically played out, which would like, do you see a lot more people like lift their nose or whatever when someone wants a ginger ale, a Sprite, water, ice?
And I don't understand why, because there's an occasion for everything. And like one of my favorite things to drink while eating pizza is bourbon and Sprite, because I like I'm not a soda drinker, but I love soda with like a big slice of pizza. And so like 1792 and Sprite, really nice, or Fusion and Sprite, whatever. Like a nice bourbon with Sprite. I don't think that is weird. I think you should eat your pizza the way you want to eat your pizza, in peace, with no judgment from anybody else. And if I want some Sprite and my bourbon to go with it, then like, why not? So yeah, and there's definitely this kind of like American competitive nature where like we definitely like, and I'm guilty of this too, things to be bigger, better, stronger, louder. And it's very much the same way with how people drink their bourbon. It's like, well, I'm going to drink it cask strength. Like, I know a lot of people one, if you like it cast strength and you prefer it, it's perfectly great. But don't rain on everybody else's parade, and don't act like that. That makes you a better bourbon drinker than somebody who likes it 90 proof or on the rocks. Like, you are not better than them.
Yeah.
And you can get that attitude out of here, because I'm here to pour bourbon and make friends, and you're getting in the way, is what I like to say to those people.
And eat pizza.
Okay, let me say real quick. So, wait, were you getting ready to say on the note of pizza? I didn't mean to
No, I said
interrupt
and eat
you.
pizza. I was just throwing that in there too
Yeah.
as another thing to do. Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Tom had a pretty
Illinois-
awesome comment, but go ahead, Brian.
I was going to say, Illinois origins, close to Chicago,
Mhm.
talking about eating pizza with bourbon and Sprite. But what's your favorite pizza, like,
New York
style
style.
origin?
New York
Okay, let's
style.
go. That's right.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I would agree.
I hate deep dish pizza.
Yeah.
And it's so funny because I don't know many like Chicagoans that do. It's just this like touristy trick. I think it's just this like really mean trick. They're just like, hey, we're going to get you a boat of pizza sauce. There's some bread at the bottom. And
It's so hard to eat.
and this much
Chicago
cheese,
style,
which
yeah.
is everybody's least favorite topping, right? The cheese, obviously. So yeah, I don't get it. I don't get it.
The older I get, the eating Chicago style pizza is like the experience of growing old and going to Disney World. You start to realize, like, while you were younger, it seemed so much more mystical and magical.
Yeah.
At least for me, when I eat deep dish style pizza now, I'm like, why are my toppings off of the pizza? Like, I have to scoop it all together into a bowl.
It's like pizza
Should've ordered
soup.
a calzone.
It's terrible.
Yeah, I mean, there's a place for a calzone. I gotta say that the calzone's underrated and underrepresented. But
You sound like a guy who'd eat a calzone as you're going down the golf course.
hey,
I'm always-
man, we just talked about no shame here.
Yeah.
No, I'm not shaming. I'm just saying that
Yeah,
seems
I mean,
like
I
a you
would
thing.
100%. I would carry a calzone in my
'Cause you
golf
get
cart.
one in one
hitting
hand and swing with the
bombs.
other.
Yeah, well, no, you use both hands to swing a golf club.
I wouldn't know. But
I would just go back briefly in all seriousness because this is hilarious. But and yeah, I'm not at all what I expected in answer to the question of what grinds your gears the most related to your role. But I appreciate it, and I would own that. Like, oftentimes in issues like that, we are unconsciously part of the problem.
Yeah.
So like, and it's like how we carry ourselves. So like, I'll own my own part of the problem. And my wife and I have talked about this a lot, is like my entire life I've been tall. Well, most of my life I was shorter when I was younger, but since I hit puberty, I've been tall and slim, totally outside of my control, 100%. But I've also been like crazy vain. I've been an insanely vain human being. And since we started having kids, like I'm pretty tall and slim still, but I started gaining weight and freaking out about it. Like, this is true confessions time. But it's like freaking. Well, but it's part of why, though. Going back to people's whys, and this is an important answer to the question: is why are you freaking out about it? Like, why is it a big deal? You're a dad of 3. It's okay to like it doesn't insinuate anything about you, but my brain, because of hard, like the context in which we grow up, like the way that society views things such as weight, particularly American society views things such as weight, like it influences your brain in sometimes ways that are unconscious. And it's important to be like, no, you don't have to apologize for this. It's not a problem. Like, should we as human beings endeavor to carry ourselves in a healthy fashion? Yeah, probably. At the same time, just like part of what's probably more unhealthy for us is to obsess about our body image and our weight all the dang time, which is what we're told to do all the dang time. And it just breaks us. Like, it's just a terrible thing to try and live with. So,
it was incredibly kind of eye-opening, because obviously we're all humans, we all have body issues, but like the amount of like the ratio of women who asked for like an XL or double XL and immediately apologized versus not, I was like getting very sad about it. I was like, why are you like, man, I'm not trying to make this a negative experience. I'm trying to just hand you some free shit.
Yeah.
Like, you seem uncomfortable. Like, why are you uncomfortable? Like, be comfortable. You're a woman up here drinking bourbon and having fun and having a great memory. Like, don't make it a negative. I don't know.
Yeah,
So,
100%.
and it's, and I'm not blaming them or upset with them. I'm upset for what has happened to them that makes them think that they should immediately follow that statement with an apology. I'm like, don't apologize for wanting a bigger shirt.
Yeah.
Like,
You
anyway.
Yeah.
So yeah, kind of
Thank
kind of a weird answer, but
nope.
it's
Great
been
answer.
on my mind.
I like it. Yep. An important answer. Thank you. All right. Let's get back to Bardstown related to like your role, your path in whiskey. You live in Bardstown now. So Peoria to Louisville to Bardstown. Bardstown's kind of like Peoria, yeah, in a way.
Very different.
Okay.
I wouldn't even compare them. They're so different. Well, one, Bardstown is a tenth of the size. Peoria is a lot bigger than people think.
Bigger than it seems, yeah. Maybe. If it's 10 times the size of Bardstown, it's quite a bit bigger than it seems.
I mean, Bardstown has like 12,000 people, 15,000 people, something like that. Like, that's
is Peoria that big though? Like 120,000?
I think it's got probably 80 to 100,000. At least when I left there, it did. So yeah, it's got a lot more than people think, but it very small town vibe, but geographically the footprint is large. Yeah.
And so Bardstown though, because that's really where I was going, is like, tell me about your feelings in relationship to living in Bardstown.
I'm thrilled to live in Bardstown. So I've always been kind of a bigger, attracted to more bigger cities, and really love Louisville and still do. My boyfriend still has a house there. So, but Bardstown's great. And I'm just going to share one little story. So it's the people, everything. It's like, why do you drink why do you patron a brand? It's the people. Like, why do you love a town? It's the people. And it's the nature. Like, oh my God, everybody's got big trees and big gardens, and it's just quite beautiful. But my neighbors are everything to me. And this little community that I've found in Bardstown is delightful. So obviously last year we used to have like block parties all the time, and house parties where you just find the music and you would just go into that person's house, and everybody would bring bourbon from, where they worked or what they do, because everybody's kind of tied into the industry somehow or another. And we didn't do that like all last year, and it was very sad. And then we got snow one weekend where it was a lot of snow, and it was packing snow. So one of my neighbors, who works for 3 Chord, her name is Laura Webb. She's awesome. She took a picture of us. She took her recycling bin, like the big box thing, and she packed it with snow, and she made a bar in her front yard out of snow, and she hung lights on it. And she brought, she had a big kettle full of hot water and like honey and cinnamon so we could make hot toddies.
Wow.
And just sent a group text to the whole neighborhood, was like,
let's go.
Let's go. And nobody had really done that in a really long time. And it is like freezing cold. And there's like, everybody's bringing like popcorn and bourbon, and I'm making hot toddies, and we're filling up thermoses this big. And we're all just like hanging out. And that's what I love about Bardstown, because you just don't get that in bigger cities. I'm such a city person. I love city life, but I could never lock myself out of my house and then just knock on my neighbor's door and just drink wine with them until or whiskey until my boyfriend comes home from work 6 hours later, and now we're drunk. And it's just a great little town. Like, everybody really kind of owns that Southern hospitality stereotype there in the most positive way. So I love it.
Sweet. Yeah, no, that sounds amazing. I
think that's like kind of that way, or like in the middle, like Mount Washington, maybe. It's halfway there.
What happened to your mic? Are you using your headphones as your microphone today, Brian?
I didn't think I was.
I think you are.
It felt like it switched.
Oh, yeah, right.
That's weird.
Yeah, you just froze.
Oh, I totally have been.
Oh man, yeah, that means the audio for half
I
of
didn't
you.
freeze.
Oh, now you sound great. Now you sound awesome.
I thought I've been
Yeah.
sounding great the whole time. Wow.
No, it sounded like
So
you were in a
weird.
fish tank. I was like, man, his mic is becoming
I'm surprised you
I
didn't
should
tell me
have
that.
said.
I'm
I
surprised you didn't tell me
should
that
have.
an hour and 25 minutes ago.
Whoops.
I'm less concerned with the audio
We're-
quality and more. I'm a content guy. Anyway, so Sam, I told you this was going to happen, but I have to take a break. Very
Oh,
brief one.
yeah,
To go to the bathroom.
Do your thing.
Brian, why don't you hit us with the next question here? Keep it rolling.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, in this, I don't know if this ties in anything that we've talked about before. We'll take a brief turn from Bardstown specifically. We'll go back to the industry as a whole. So, so you're living in Bardstown. It seems like a lot of things are happening in Bardstown, and then you're traveling away. So you're kind of going back and forth, but still, a lot of the industry is happening. What is exciting you? Whether it is something that you've been able to see while you've been out with people, whether it's something that's happening behind the scenes at Bardstown Bourbon Company or larger in American whiskey that has you excited.
Man, that's a tough question because there's so many things that come to mind. First of all, every day at Bardstown Bourbon Company, there's something new going on. And now that I'm traveling all the time, it's like I come back and shit changes overnight. Like I'll be gone for 4 days. And yeah, so literally since we broke ground in 2014 when we bought the land, we have never been idle as far as construction goes. Like we're always building something and usually multiple things. So right now, like what's immediately like kind of short term, very fun to look forward to is we're building an outdoor bar on the patio and more patio seating. And right out front, which I just see Tiki Cocktails patio, like hog roast. I just want to do this whole thing. Then there's 2 rick houses going up right out front where it's kind of vacant. A lot of people thought we were going to be putting in a hotel there. We still might eventually. It's kind of not even on the radar for the time being. But we are putting up 2 more rick houses. And I believe at least one of them, for sure, if not both of them, are going to be entirely made out of glass. That's really cool. And then what just launched a couple weeks ago, May 12th, we launched our own bottling line. So we're now grain to glass, which is awesome. And we can provide that for our customers that we distill for as well. So that's huge. It's like a Willy Wonka land of a bottling facility. So that's kind of a geeky thing to just say is exciting, but it's very exciting.
Yeah.
And then kind of like in the industry, to kind of tie that all together, I think Bardstown, Kentucky is on the up and up. I think that we kind of sparked something that's now driving a lot of competitors to kind of up their experience game.
Yes.
Just to be frank. And I know that a lot of our neighbor competitors are building and haven't like released to the public exactly what they're building, but it's gonna put Bardstown even more on the map than it currently is. And I think we're just gonna get more hotels, more businesses. I think Bardstown's gonna be just the coolest place in the world in a few years. And I think it is, but I really do think it like in the next 5 years, Bardstown's just gonna like take off.
Are you telling me it's going to be harder to get into Mammies now?
Come on, it will never be that hard to get into Mammies unless it's St. Patty's Day and there's a DJ.
I've never been to Mammies, so.
Oh, you got to go at night when they turn it into like a full blown club, and it's very fun. It's very fun.
So if you're a real estate investor, now's the time to buy houses in Bardstown.
Yeah, I mean it's still expensive. Like it's pretty comparable to what Louisville would be. You know, it's not Nashville yet or anything like that. But yeah, I think that it's only going to go up from here for Bardstown as kind of a tourist city.
Yeah, I think I agree with you. Yeah. So what was that question? What excites you? I assume that's what you hit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sweet. Well, let's get into Bardstown specifically then.
Okay.
And I mean, when you first went to Bardstown, you mentioned opening the bar experience. How involved are you in that on a daily basis these days?
None.
Not at all.
Actually.
Oh,
So
okay.
yeah. So I have completely stepped away from the bar, other than doing cocktail classes here and there, which still isn't like the bar and restaurant at all. I'm pretty well removed, and I'm really excited to see some kind of more up and coming talent behind our bar. Mara Hardings moved here, relocated here from Ohio, having a culinary background, but had never bartended before. And now she is the beverage director. And she is killing it. And she don't need my help. I do taste her cocktails sometimes. When she's working on stuff, I'll give her some feedback, but she don't need it. She's just absolutely crushing the game. So we definitely have left a good succession there. A good, yeah.
How would you describe the drink experience there at the kitchen and bar? I mean, because like the vintage spirits room and that list is
One of a kind.
legendary. Yeah. So I mean, we talked about that a little bit with Danny. We were sitting in the vintage spirits library, which is an amazing room. This is like the best room I've ever been in. Anyway, we're not talking about that. Tell me about specifically the cocktail experience there.
So the cocktail experience is educational and hospitality first. So however you want, really, I mean, I think it's still this way, but I think when I was working behind the bar, and any bar I've ever worked behind, my biggest goal is to make a customer feel safe and comfortable and non-judged and all of those things. So even though, we all kind of joke about people that ask for, Coke with their pappy or whatever, I really do feel like just providing a good, comfortable space for somebody to enjoy themselves is always the first goal. But past that, you have this bar in a distillery that has, their own brand, but you see hundreds of different brands behind the bar. So to be in a distillery, you pretty much already know if you're in that distillery, you're there because you want to know more about bourbon, right? Or you would just go to Louisville to go out to eat, people that come, step foot in our distillery get this really unique experience because everybody that works behind the bar, in the kitchen, they know about the brand, they know about how we produce what we do, but we also have all these other products. So we just kind of have this big, wide open door to say, like, just be educational. You don't have to be, forcing the brand down anybody's throat. Just, what bourbons are they interested? How, what kind of educational experience can you give them? And cocktails, especially, like, I love getting people that are like with groups, for a bachelor party or whatever. They're like, oh, I don't drink bourbon, I'm just here for the ride. I'm like, have you been given bourbon the way that maybe like suits you? Like, have you tried a Kentucky Mule? Have you tried an old fashioned? Maybe you're
That old fashioned.
There's a way to drink it to where you can enjoy it, or with water, and getting somebody who walked in there not ready to try any bourbon to get to drink bourbon some way, I feel like is where that cocktail experience kind of comes in, and what you can expect from any of the bartenders that work there currently or have ever worked there is just non-judgment and education to provide the best comfortable space for that person possible. So it's a good time.
Yeah. So the first episode we recorded for the pod was with Dan, and I felt imposter syndrome when we showed up. Like, we're starting a podcast. I'm like, Dan, can we come record with you, man? Because Brian had met Dan, and we just wanted to record with some industry people. And I knew very little about Bardstown at the time because you guys weren't distributed in Wisconsin until like a month ago. Yeah. So it's been relatively new. My wife and I had eaten lunch there not long after it opened during our first Kentucky trip ever. And I'd started the channel in October. Anyway, big imposter syndrome. And I forgot where I was going.
We're all just starting up, man. we're just starting up a brand. You're just starting up a podcast.
Oh, yeah. Man, it was going to be a good question. I was leading into that with panache.
You were talking about taking in the room, and what were you going to say? You're talking about imposter syndrome. You're talking about, come on, man.
I'm digging hard.
Creating a good experience.
Oh, yes, that's it. That was it. It's like, so we show up there, and it was like a dream come true. Really, it was. I felt like this is awesome. Like just talking to people, being welcomed in, and we're there to record a podcast, but everybody was so nice, and the stuff is incredible. So the food is wonderful. Like my wife and I had an awesome lunch. Everybody who we've sent there has said, the food was incredible. We're like, we know the food's incredible. And then Danny said, hey, you want to drink? When we showed up, and we're like, of course we want to drink. Like, we're not going to say no to that. And then said, let's do barrel-aged old-fashioned. And man, alive. Like they're the little jugs of it that I don't know if you guys give those out on the regular, those little pint size or whatever.
No, never.
He gave them to us, and I was so happy because then I had like two more one after I had gotten home. But it was amazing. So tell us about that because I just have to hear the background. I didn't actually ask him like what's the story behind how this old fashioned is created, because I love an old fashioned. I mean, I'm not a big cocktail guy, but it's my favorite cocktail, a bourbon old fashioned specifically, and that one was unbelievable.
So Dan and I were on a team of 4. The other 2 were Brandy, who I mentioned earlier, awesome, freaking female badass, and Hobby, who still works with the brand. He did end up becoming the beverage director, and now he is in production, so he's helping make the juice, which is super cool. But we were the 4 that started the cocktail program, and had all known each other in the industry before. And as we're kind of just in like creative mode, so the restaurant wasn't open yet, but we were ordering the glassware and building out a cocktail menu and stuff like that. We were like, man, we probably need a barrel-aged cocktail, because that just makes sense, right? And so we were looking on like Amazon for like those 5-liter like little barrels that you see on top of bars, and we were just all kind of like, doesn't it seem kind of ridiculous that we have a mini barrel when we get like hundreds of barrels in here every single day? Like every single day we have like 1,000 barrels delivered. You know what I mean? Like how hard would it be to just grab one and like, can we pour 50 gallons of product into one and sit on that as like a deficit in your inventory to start with? So it was a very logistics like wise and business wise, it didn't make a whole lot of sense. We're like, hey, we want to spend a shit ton of fucking money, sorry, that we aren't going to make back. It's not going to be very measurable immediately. So like to start a bar in that kind of deficit, and it didn't make any sense. It didn't make any sense. But we just knew we had to do it, and we made it happen. So we get 2 fresh barrels, and this was like day 1, and we do a Manhattan in one, we do an old fashioned in the other, and I've never had so much fun in my life. Like that was one of those things that now I feel like I'm a little jaded on. Like I see us filling the barrels, and I'm like, whatever.
It's old news.
Yeah, but like when we first did it, like we got all hands on deck, because you had to pour like, you're filling up 50 gallons worth of a cocktail, right? So you're pouring like 40 cases of bourbon in there, like minimum for an old fashioned. 40 cases. It's so much bourbon, and so we had to make it fun. So we were making games out of it to see like who could get like the right like little like tornado of water to where it would come out and like point. We were having like contests to see who could dump it the quickest. And but what's really cool about that is that you can make a cocktail that's pretty much impossible to replicate on a small size, because
Yeah.
when you're mixing with 50 gallons of product, of ingredients, of spirit and booze, you can get to some really creative blending kind of techniques. So, you got 40 cases of bourbon. Like, let's throw in fusion. What complements fusion? Some Old Forester banana notes. Like, let's throw in some Old Forester. We could really take every component of that cocktail and break it down into a million different things, which is impossible to recreate in a single recipe, right? In a single serving recipe. So, and each barrel would kind of gain its own personality, much like single barrel bourbons do. And we got to play around with that one time. And I remember one time Dan Calloway was just like, I think a bottle of rum will do the trick. Like a 750 milliliter of rum in a 53 gallon barrel is like pennies to the dollar, right? Like, it's like, that wasn't not trying to make a financial analogy, but like, you know what I mean? It was like nothing, but it like just, man, it just did the trick. It just made something magical happen in that barrel, to where we could get just very creative and kind of treat every barrel differently. And it was really cool. And then it was really cool. Well, it wasn't cool that COVID happened and our restaurant shut down, but it was really cool that we had like a 15-month aged old fashioned when we opened back up again, because we weren't selling any for so long.
That's right.
Yeah. So, and we would infuse barrels. Like our first barrel we did with rose petals and eucalyptus. That was really cool. And we've done some other unique things. So you have to go see like what batch they're on. So like the menu, we also changed the menu to read like what barrel we're on or what batch. So like, if it's the last one, how many have passed since the last time you were here, and if it would be the same, it's cool. It's super cool. They're really great cocktails. How was your old fashioned when you had one?
I mean, it's life-changing. Like,
it is life-changing.
It was so good.
Because you can honestly never have an old-fashioned again and not compare it to that, and it kind of ruins it. I
completely agree.
It kind of ruins it.
I'm chasing that feeling. And it was there. That feeling was a high for a lot of reasons. Being there, number one, because it was like, well, the second time I had been at that facility, but being from Wisconsin, I'm not down in Kentucky every week,
Right.
First recording of our podcast in that vintage spirits room with this barrel aged old fashioned, talking bourbon with Brian and with Danny, and it was such a high, so fun. And
I don't think I talked to Drew about this, but I had gone to lunch with a buddy. I like to bring some of my staff at Quill's down to Bardstown and either have lunch at Willett, because we do the coffee bar at Willett. So I'm bringing kegs of cold brew there, or we'll come have lunch with you all. I just want people to have an experience at a place that just like shows great customer service and hospitality, just to get an example of that in a different way. And I had a drink. I was on the menu that was Discovery 4, but with like a seaweed water or something. Like,
what
is this something of yours?
No. So this is my Esso's cocktail. So my significant other is Hobby. And he's in production now, but he was the beverage director for a long time. And he truly, like, I had Don Randy earlier. The only reason I am as good as I am at cocktails is because what I've learned from people that I bartend with. Right. And I put Hobby and Randy in that same like highest regard, because Hobby came up with that cocktail and it was so cool. It was a smoked glass, which was also his idea, and I don't know if he saw it somewhere or whatever, but just to we were using this like really fancy bar tool to smoke glasses, and I'm sure there's a name for it, and I'm sure I'm just being an idiot, but it was like something battery powered, right? And he was like, man, I don't know why we're spending all this money on these like cheap tools that break and like need new batteries and all this stuff, when we can just chop up a slice of a stave, like a charred piece of stave, barrel stave, and just literally light that on fire and stick the cup over the top. So that's how he would prime the glass. And then he would make this cocktail that was served neat with Discovery 4 and seaweed water and some sort of like really unique bitters or bitter liqueur. And I can't remember what it was. I think it was like Foro Amaro or something. Anyways, that's one of the best cocktails I've ever had in my life.
It's amazing. And going into what you were saying about having stuff however you want it, like you would think that in another setting, someone would be like, why would you ever do something Discovery 4? It's this premium thing.
Dude, that cocktail was so good. It's so good. It's still on the menu.
I don't even know what seaweed water is. Like, I just can't even, I don't have a mental category for that.
It's like brown. It's kind of briny. It's basically just like a little bit of a, so you get like just a salty seawater kind of brine.
Sure. Okay.
That's totally, consumable, if you will.
Sure.
So he just took dehydrated seaweed and soaked it in water. And there's definitely a specific ratio to make sure to get the most flavor. And then you just use that water to dilute the cocktail. And now I'm starting to think that it's not even a chilled drink. Like, even though it's diluted with seaweed water, I don't know that it's stirred with ice. So it's like room temperature, which is also just thinking very outside the box of what we typically know in cocktails. And it's really freaking good. Like, it's now a permanent fix on the menu.
I might have to go there tomorrow. I gotta take stuff down tomorrow. I might have to
Let's go. I also want to find a way to teach people how to make this in virtual cocktail classes. But the smoked glass portion is a little bit complicated for me because the whole point of, I love that sound. The whole point of like the cocktail classes is that these are like somewhat accessible ingredients or things like that. And smoking a glass kind of isn't exactly, or it can be dangerous. I don't know. I'm gonna figure it out. We'll make it work.
First, we sell these Bardstown Bourbon Company branded torches.
Yeah.
Come with 3 sets of barrel stave pieces.
Love it. What bottle you got there, Drew?
This is Discovery 4.
Oh, nice.
I've got 2 backups. I loved it so much. I worked to get some.
It's tasty.
Yes.
Sam, you have to remind me too. Did you incept one of the discoveries?
I blended Discovery 3. That was my blend.
Nice, which was great.
Full transparency, I'm pretty sure that 3 is my favorite.
Me too.
I'm not just saying that because you're on here.
No. I totally appreciate it. I think that I mean, it's funny because we all get to blend for the company. It just doesn't guarantee that your blend gets to the bottle, right? So, Dan blends and we all blend. And I think I would assume at least that we're all making something that we really like, right? And it's kind of funny when it sounds a little pretentious, but like it's kind of funny because like if you really like it, you're not a super unique individual. You know what I mean? Like, it's okay to make something that's like for you. Like my blend was not for anybody else. Like my blend was like, this is what I want in a bourbon. Yeah. And then it was cool to see it so well received. And then you're kind of like, duh. Like if you like it, there's probably 100,000 other people that like it. You know what I mean? So it's awesome to hear people say that they like that blend. I hope it's not the last time I blend where one of my blends gets in the bottle, but we'll see.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. Is often when things bear the moniker of pop or popular, they kind of suck. And so it's like a helpful exercise if you're thinking about developing a product. We do this in coffee where it's like you want to make something that you are super proud of. Because that has actually, you're designing for what I've talked about on this channel as the smallest viable audience. Like an audience that you personally are engineered to meet. Like I have things in common with these people. And so I will design for me and for them. And I know that what I'm designing will hit their needs, my needs, their needs. And we'll share that in common and it's going to be contagious. Like that is a pretty magnetic place to start from.
It's also one of my favorite pieces of kind of like hospitality or like restaurant isms that I feel like applies to a lot of things in life and different categories of business is a restaurant for everyone is a restaurant for no one. So like you can't
like Chili's.
yeah, like you can't make a menu like why don't you have salmon? Because we just don't have salmon here. You know what I mean? Like we can't just have everything, right? Because then we wouldn't be successful. Like we wouldn't be known for anything. We wouldn't, a restaurant for everyone is a restaurant for no one. And I think about that too, like with bourbon. Like it's totally okay to have an
I love hearing
unpopular
that. I feel like I
opinion.
don't hear that enough.
Yeah. And it's really hard for like startups and entrepreneurs and things like that to really say like, man, like how are we going to identify? Because then you build that and you what you do more than anything is you start eliminating audiences or eliminating people and you don't like to do that because you're like, oh man, I just want something for everybody. And I think the bourbon category itself is for everybody. And I think eventually after we have, more products and more estate only distilled products and stuff like that, we can kind of build that. But in the beginning, you do have to think like, who are we for, And it's a weird conversation. But it's how, if you really want to be something for everybody, you kind of have to start slowly and build out. And that's what we're doing. So I don't even know where that came from, but it just popped in my brain. I thought I would share it.
Yeah.
I don't know what your thoughts are with the procedure of how you all like do the bracket or whatever to get to whose recipe you go with. I'm not a fan of that or not, but I'll say I started implementing that at Quills for our seasonal drinks in spring.
That's so
and so
cool.
This is our second season for doing that. And everyone like seeing the team be creative and engage with what could possibly be the drinks. It just brings a breath of fresh air to the cafe that I had missed for a couple of years.
That sounds awesome. And like what good culture that builds too. Like we just like one of the first things we talked about tonight was like, the vibe, the energy, the passion from, me and Dan and everybody that you meet when you walk into the distillery. 90% of that is because of the inclusivity and our collaborative way of creating product and making everybody feel like they have an equal chance or they have a part in building that brand really makes everybody very excited to show up for work and to show people that visit us a great experience. And man, little things like that make such a huge difference over time.
Yeah.
Well, Sam, we're on track to go overtime, so I wanted to check in with you before we just like assume another 20 minutes of your evening.
I'm totally fine. Yeah.
All right.
I love the conversation, so this is great.
Cool. Yeah, so we got 2 more big questions and then, crowd-funded questions.
Sure.
Somebody's been chiming in, and I forget who, but we'll find it, asking for recipes. We'll get to those at the end. We'll try and make them very brief, but we'll begin wrapping up with more of a goal-oriented question, and that is, from where you're at now, do you have goals? Like, what are your goals, either at Bardstown or in the industry? Like, do you have an end game as you approach your career, or are you just like vibing pretty hard where you're at right now?
A little bit of both. I mean, I would love to be the CEO of the company. That's a long way
Like
away.
business operations beyond like craft aspirations, because those are big. Like from where you got into Bardstown to like CEO, those are very different types of work.
Yeah, never gonna happen. But
no, that's not what I'm saying.
That doesn't mean
that
I
is
can't
not what I was
fantasize.
saying. I'm
That
saying
doesn't
they're
mean
very
I can't
different
fantasize.
types of work. So I was asking, like, do you really want to be CEO?
I would be a boss ass CEO. Trust me. I have a lot to learn.
I don't doubt
before
it.
I could be there, but I do think that I have an ability. I think a lot of it because of bartending and restaurant industry to just kind of assess, observe. Like I'm very good at observations. I can see the writing on the wall, right, and make proactive decisions to either stay on track or to avoid a bad situation or anything like that. But I am vibing my position so hard right now, like that I don't see myself going anywhere. I just want to make my contributions bigger and better as I continue. I have absolutely zero marketing background, but I'm on the marketing team and I have a lot of marketing responsibilities, and I'm very, very grateful for that, because it's just an invaluable experience to work in marketing for a startup brand that is as big as our brand is going to be. I get to see every little piece along the way of how to build a brand and how to roll out a brand and grow a brand, that it's just like, it's incredible. And I don't see that slowing down. I don't see myself coasting and just kind of becoming complacent and totally comfortable. I am not comfortable with comfortability. Let's put it that way. I like to be challenged. I like to be overwhelmed even. And that's kind of a toxic trait of mine, to be honest, but it comes from working for 15 years in restaurants. Like, my favorite shift in a restaurant was one where all fucking hell broke loose. Like, I live for those freaking shifts, man. And I bet you Brian knows what I'm talking about too. Just where it's just, you're just pumping it out and you're laughing because you're doing the absolute best you can. You know that anything that's out of your control is out of your control, and you're just kind of riding through the waves. That's how I feel with my role as national brand ambassador, because to be quite honest with you, which I don't think anybody else in the company would probably say, is like, it's been crazy. It has been so crazy. I have seen some shit, dude. I have seen just political climates within, working with different companies and with leadership and with, pissing off competitors, making friends with competitors. Like, I've seen all these pros and cons that I'm just like, I would have, like, I know I'm going to take this knowledge with me for the rest of my life. So I don't see myself really moving out of national brand ambassador for a long time. And if I did, I don't even know what it would be. I think between here and that point I get to where I'm just like a pro at my job, which I'm not. And I'm just like, wow, I could do this in my sleep. It's so comfortable. Like, I see that being like 5 to 10 years down the road, to which then there will be some niche path for me that I have not found yet. But it's not going to be the CEO. I won't be the CEO. But you know what I mean? I don't know what it is, and I'm excited for the journey.
I love that idea of the niche path. Like, I used to be. And I'm going to ask you another question in a minute, but Brian has a question. We got a lot of questions. The niche path, I think, is totally undervalued. Yeah, I mean, this is a podcast about you. We talk too much. You're talking the right amount. The niche path is totally undervalued in human existence, where it's like, what's your path? Not the path you think you should have or the path you think people want you to have. What's the path that's like right for you? Because I like bring a lot of like, what should I do? Like, I have a sense of duty. Like, I'm an American. Like, what do I do? And it's like, no, man, like, what do you want to do? Like, what are you uniquely engineered, like, in your humanity and your personness? Like, what should you be doing given the way that you're wired? Like, that's the question that I've been trying to answer for the last 18 months. And like, each day is like, wake up and like, how can I do more of the Drew stuff and less of the other people's stuff? Not that it's worse. It's not. It's better for them and worse for me, Yeah. So I love that question.
I think everybody has to ask that question too. Is like, it's not so black and white. The older you get, it's like you have to find where Sam fits in to this career or this world or whatever. So, we're all just figuring it out.
Figure it out.
Yep.
Yeah. Brian, what were you going to say?
You struck a chord with me because even prior to working at Quills, I worked for a board game company. I organized events and did it doesn't even matter specifically where I worked, but I like to work in a lot of busyness, when there's a lot of moving pieces and in high stress. And what's weird is because you generally around people that stress is like a negative thing. And there's a lot of like tension, it seems like sometimes with people. And sometimes it's hard for me to take pause and say, hey, look, I prefer to work. Like I'm going to get a little loud and but to me, it keeps my brain moving instead of just doing the same minutia every time. If I'm constantly going and trying to troubleshoot and think, I think you do need maybe a quality control or sorry, not a damage control kind of person who's like checking in, like, was that okay? Like, like checking in my wake or in your, in the wake of us. But like at the same time, it's the movers like that. I feel like that can help continue to see blind spots or to continue to work in things because I don't know. I just always like, it just struck a chord with me. And I appreciate hearing someone who resonates in that same way because I don't find a lot of people who do.
I think a lot more people do than you think. And I think that's why, during COVID, so many people suffered mentally so miserably because like me being one of them, like I live for chaos. I can't explain it. Like I'm more, and people think, they look at me and they look at my lifestyle and they say, man, she's such an extrovert. I'm actually not an extrovert at all. I am so socially awkward. I get very anxious in social situations. What provides me comfort is chaos, because when there's chaos, I can slip away or I can disappear or something else can happen that distracts the conversation. And I realized, and I always like labeled myself as an extrovert until COVID last year. And then I realized like the reason I needed the crowds and the busyness and the chaos was so I could be more invisible. And then you got into these social situations or these weird, which now I'm totally comfortable with, silver lining of COVID, but like this would have terrified me like a year ago. Like the idea of
pod.
Yeah, being on camera and talking to two strangers and the expectation of chemistry and flow and conversation like would have been very overbearing. And now I'm comfortable with it, and that's a great accomplishment and a stride, right? But
absolutely,
for restaurant industry people, I think it is just kind of this buzz, right? It's like having the fan on while you go to bed. It's just kind of there's something beautiful about the noise that makes you feel more at peace. And then when you don't have it, you're stressed as hell and you don't know what to do with yourself. So it's just a weird observation.
So that's a great segue into the final outline question, and that's the question we ask all of our folks, and it's probably the weirdest question to ever show up on a bourbon podcast, but that is, how do you define purpose? Like as you get out of bed every morning and you're like, I'm gonna live life today, what is the thing that drives you to do such, to do the thing, to crush it?
What a loaded question. Okay. Well, the word purpose is a motive in my life because it has taken on different meanings for me. And I've recently found, I think for most human beings, we wake up and say, what is my purpose, right? And a lot of times it has to do with what you do for work, and a lot of times it has to do with what you do after work, right? And in your spare time and things of that nature. And your job is just to provide you sustenance, right? And that's all good and fine too. I think real happiness is met when you can kind of make it one seamless thing. And I know that is not very common, but I think purpose really becomes fulfilling when you can take something that makes you happy and apply it to every part of your life, meaning your job, your social relationships, your family, how you spend your spare time, things, all of those things, right? So to be very frank, like I think about it a lot as like, hey, like I work in spirits, right? Like there are a lot of people that suffer because of the industry for
Mm.
things that shouldn't be taboo, but are amongst spirit producers. We don't talk about addiction. We don't talk about mental health, and I hate that because we feel culpable. We feel guilty in some way. But I think about the way that I use brand education to, and maybe this sounds like I'm an idiot, and I'm so sorry if this is going to offend anybody or if this rubs a sore spot with anybody.
I think
But
you're probably on the right channel to go to say something offensive, because
I
I don't know if you
don't.
watched all my
I
videos,
just
but
I don't want to make anybody upset or emotionally triggered or anything of that nature, but I do feel like the more you can geek out about what's in your glass, the better the chance you are to not abuse it. So I love that Bardstown Bourbon Company comes from um, this approach of education and transparency, because you should care about what's in the glass other than the fact that it's going to give you a good buzz. Do we like it for that? Yes. And there's nothing to be ashamed for that, I think. But that's how I find my purpose, is the more I can educate people, the more I can give people a reason to care what the mash bill is, or where the grain came from, or what kind of barrels we aged in. The more I know that they're really going to be present in that moment when they're experiencing it, when they're drinking it, and that's the best space to be in. Once again, like, we don't want to make a habit of just like needing something in our hands or needing an excuse to walk away to go order a drink or whatever. Like, we want the conversation, we want the moment to be centered around this American spirit that we're making as a part of ceremony, as a part of ritual, right? As part of growing our roots as the youngest country and the youngest culture in the world, right? Like, let's make good habits, let's make good memories, and let's make good friends in meeting people over bourbon, right? So, my job is less of a job and more of a lifestyle, because I'm always on brand. I'm always thinking about the brand, and that's very easy for me because I enjoy it and because I make it purposeful. So purpose is very important.
yeah, I think the best brand ambassadors are the ones who naturally identify with the brand. Like, because it's hard to perform. Like, you were, like I said earlier, you're slinging bourbon all day. You know, it was a hot day out there in Chicago. It was warm. It was rough.
Yeah.
And then you got to come on and do this thing. And like, if you're not passionate about it, if you don't feel personally connected with it, it's gonna drain you. Like, you're eventually just gonna bite the dust. You'll burn out if there's not a heavy personal alliance with the mission and the identity of the product you're trying to hustle.
Yeah.
Hustle is totally the wrong word, but
it's okay.
I mean,
it's
hustle
understood.
in terms of the, like, if you're trying to hustle out a bunt, single to first base, that kind of hustle, not like you're trying to.
We definitely hustle. We know how to hustle. Yeah.
Boom. All right. Sweet. All right. Nation, let's hear from you all. Any parting questions for Sam? I'm going to try and find somebody super chatted. Okay. Andrew Beck, who gave us the blind question. Yes. Andrew Beck said, what is Sam's Manhattan recipe or your daiquiri recipe? So 2 requests, Manhattan and a daiquiri.
So I can make a Manhattan 18 different ways till Sunday. Like,
what's your favorite Manhattan recipe?
It's so impossible to tell. So I do tend to lean on this very classic recipe that's a little bit under a little more obscure, but it's very, very old, where it uses a dash of not even a dash, a couple drops of absinthe in it, with a rye based Manhattan. So rye whiskey, sweet vermouth, dash of bitters, like literally a drop of absinthe, and then a lemon peel garnished on top. And that is really freaking good as far as just kind of having a unique Manhattan. I do really like black Manhattans, where they split or use, instead of vermouth, Averna, which is a very dark, bittersweet Italian liqueur. I also like, and I'm pretty sure there's a name for it, like a classic or like a modern classic, if you will, where instead of using cocktail bitters, they use a bar spoon of Fernet, because Fernet is one of my biggest guilty
Crazy.
pleasures.
Oh my god, that's some crazy stuff.
I look like a hipster, I talk like a hipster, and I drink Fernet. I am literally a walking stereotype.
You drink it
and
straight?
Oh my gosh. Fernets are so good. And not just Fernet Branca. Like everybody thinks Fernet Branca when they think Fernet, but Fernet is like a category. And there's actually a great one that I had from Chicago called Leatherby that is chef's kiss. And yeah, it's a very, very, very bitter liqueur. So use a bar spoon of it, or maybe even half a bar spoon of it if you're new to bitter spirits, instead of cocktail bitters in your drink. And it's very good. Also, it helps you digest your meal. Like if you ate a little too much because dinner was just so good, have a little Fernet or put a little Fernet in your Manhattan, and it literally, our bodies register the flavor of bitter as poisonous. It's a self-defense mechanism, right? So as soon as we taste something bitter, our bodies start digesting to, kind of not great table talk, but to expel it as soon as possible, right? That's why bitter spirits are drank either before a meal to open up the appetite, or after a meal to help digest.
I feel like I would just have an allergic reaction, which I'm prone to. Not a surprise to the nation. They know I have a weak disposition, but that's really helpful. I may try that. That's really interesting.
Do it. Bar spoon of Fernet instead of bitters in your Manhattan. It's very delicious.
Okay.
And a good vermouth. If you can actually spend your time to choose a good vermouth.
You tell me what's a good vermouth, because if you're like me, you have no idea what a good vermouth is.
My go-to vermouth is Koki, Vermouth di Torino, which has this very like velvety, soft mouthfeel, and this kind of like bubblegum flavor, which is sweet but not rich. It's still like very herbaceous. Like sweet vermouth has like a very notable herbaceous quality. It's infused with tons of Italian herbs and things of that nature. So Koki is a great one. It's not terribly expensive. Cocchi. And it's a brand that has many different things, right? So get the sweet vermouth for your Manhattan. They've got aperitifs and dry vermouths and things of that nature too, but great brand.
So helpful. Yeah, we're going to have you on another time just to talk about liqueurs, because I know about liqueurs. And
I would love to do that.
Mixologist things.
I would love to do that.
What we'll do, I'm not going to guarantee this, but what I'll propose is that we'll do a live stream of Sam teaches Drew to make cocktails.
We can do it tomorrow. Honestly, I'm ready to. I love cocktails. I love cocktails, and I love giving people the tools to make them at home.
When are you going to be in Milwaukee? We can do it at my bar.
Okay.
Which is right here. And
let's talk
if you drive
offline.
through Milwaukee, nation, this is going to be great. Anyway, if we don't do it now, we'll do it later. It'll be fun. All right. We'll let the baby do a cameo on that stream. That should be fun.
Yay.
Lots of questions. Tom wants to know if you're going to come through Columbus, Ohio on the tour. You are. When?
I don't know. Everything is very loose, but I know Columbus is
on but Milwaukee is not. But I'm sure you'll drive like through it. You're either going through Milwaukee or you're going through Peoria. So
yeah, you're right. I think we are gonna make a stop in Columbus. Okay. I think so.
All right.
So I'll work on it.
I'm seeing a lot of questions for Disco 5 information. If Discovery 5 information,
like when and what? Yeah.
Discovery 5. If I remember right, I haven't been at the distillery this week, but what's today? Oh, okay. So it was supposed to be bottled first week of June in our bottling line. After that, it's pretty quick now for us to get to distribution and then onto shelves. So next, they're probably just in bottling right now, but we are bottling A lot, very quickly. So I think we'll have everything out, I want to say by like June 13th, we'll see Discovery 5.
And what are
Oh
the
my
specs
gosh.
on that? Yeah.
You're catching me after a few glasses of wine. So I
Half a bottle.
know I know that there is the oldest bourbon that we've ever put in a bottle before. It's not ours, it's sourced, obviously, but it's 17-year bourbon is going to be in the blend. And the other parts are a little bit younger than some of the age statements that we've seen, just to kind of counterbalance that age in the 17-year. So still flavor profile wise, it's got like a 12 to 15 kind of average flavor profile. And it's incredible. I think it's very interesting. I think Discovery right now is on a roll because Discovery 2, 3, and 4 all won double golds. We never entered Series 1 in, or I'm sure it would have, but a lot of speculation there. And I think Discovery 5 is in line to be just as good quality wise, but flavor profile, I think it's very unique, as they all have kind of been. Like Series 2 was kind of like this big, huge caramel bomb that you couldn't taste a hint of the proof in at cast strength. 3 had like this like sweet, soft, kind of feminine flavor profile, honestly. And then 4 was like spicy and robust and flavorful. And I think 5 is kind of its own beast. I don't think it's very comparable to anything flavor wise that we've put out before. So really excited for everybody to get it in the next couple of weeks. Ask your liquor store owners when they're getting it in. Everybody always wants to know, like, man, it sells out so quickly. How can I get it? Make relationships with your liquor store owners. Like, they like that. They want repeat customers. They want relationships with their customers. Like, ask them. Like, don't be afraid. And yeah, it's just going to help you get better product in and be the first to know about when it comes in.
Yeah. So here's the thing, though, is I have good relationships at 2 stores, one right down the road, one downtown, actually on the east side. And they're like, they actually kind of rely on me to tell them what's coming and what they need to ask their distributor for.
That's funny.
Yeah. But it's fine. Like, they got other things to worry about than bourbon. And so I'm like, can you please try and get this for me? I promise you it will sell. Like, if you have it on your shelf, I promise you will sell it. If not, I'll buy out your case. Like,
yeah,
anyway,
that's awesome.
But I actually sat, so I was in, long story, I'll spare you. Bottom line is, it's not super transparent always from the distributors when they're going to let it out and who they're going to let it out to. And that gets it feels a little sketchy. I want to dig more into the world of distribution because it feels not always on the up and up. Do you have any insight on that, Sam? This is totally out of left field, but
yeah. So the reason that America has a 3-tier system, right, which is producer, distributor, and then retailer or bar, is to make sure that we don't, make people pay to play, right? Like, so we legally can't tell people, like, hey, you have to buy so much Fusion in order to get Discovery. But it does work as a tool for distributors, not the producers, to sell more product, but entry level or bottom line product to get the nicer allocated ones, right? Because that's, all of your distributor reps are paid by commission mostly. And so we have no say in that. We have no say in it. And there's definitely brands that, even though they're not supposed to have a say in it, they definitely have a say in it. What we try to do is just be fair. And the only thing we can do legally is encourage, methods for distributors to use. And we encourage them to put our product in the hands of people that aren't going to buy it in bulk and sell it for 8 times as much on the secondary market. Why would we help those people out, right? Like, we want to put it in hands of people that want to enjoy the whiskey, share the good news about the whiskey, make content, make friends, and all of those things. So definitely, as a small brand, we try to really support our local independent stores, because those are the ones that really help move the needle for a small brand. Because going into a Total Wine, you can often just get a very check-in, check-out kind of customer employee interaction. But at a local independent store, you get employees that actually know what they're selling and love turning people on to new things and love educating their customers that come in about what they're buying or what they should buy. So we like very much to support those accounts. That's when we are out doing our mobile tour with our sampling unit. We're focusing on supporting those accounts. So most of it is completely out of our hands. Once we hire the distributor, they do what they want with it. The good thing and the bad thing is that about the industry right now is that everybody wants more bourbon, and there's not enough to go around. And we did not realize this even 10 years ago when the boom first hit, that the boom would be even bigger now, still to this day. So your prices aren't controlled by your producers. So it's very easy to say, well, screw Sazerac for selling it for this much. Like, nobody gave him that price point, the market will do what it wants to do, more or less. So, just be patient with the bourbon game, and try to, buy your bourbon, open it, and share it with friends, because we're not here for bragging rights. We're here to enjoy bourbon together. So that's all I can say about that.
Nice. Well, that's adequate. All right, we're going to wrap it up there. We're 20 minutes over. Sam, thank you for your generosity with your time and your perspective. I know Squad enjoyed it. We had a high level of engagement, high level of audience retention this evening. So it was a lot of fun. I'm glad we could connect, and hopefully we'll get to do something cool with me learning how to get off my butt and actually make some pretty rad cocktails, which my wife would really appreciate, because she loves a bourbon cocktail way more than just straight bourbon. She doesn't like the intensity generally of bourbon, but she loves a really amazing bourbon cocktail.
I love that idea. We should do that.
I owe it to her. I owe her so much, but I owe her at least this little thing. Yeah.
I support it.
All right. Well, we'll wrap it there, Nation. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for your comments, your participation in the live stream. If you're catching this on entryproofpodcast.com or Spotify or wherever else, hey, thanks for tuning in. We'll try and drop something next week or maybe the week after. We're not 100% on the every week release because we got jobs and families and stuff. That's just the way it runs right now, which is fine. We're down with it if you're down with it. But what you can count on is content every week from the Droopy Whiskey channel or the Abandoned Bourbon channel. So make sure you're following those on YouTube. That's where you can get steady content and live streams every Thursday night. I see my video cutting in and out. That's a good time to hang it up. So y'all have a good rest of your evening. Stay healthy, stay safe, and remember to keep it neat.
Cheers, everybody. Sam, thanks again for all of your time.
My pleasure. Had so much fun.